Hello, everyone. I am in confusion here. Um, so, last bullet point of social influence is probably the hardest one. It involves taking everything we've looked at so far and using it to explain what we call social change. Minority influence, majority influence, and obedience. You need to be able to apply these. So this is a much harder skill, a much harder bullet point. So the actual name of this bullet point is the processes in social change, and we're going to look at the theories that we've covered about and how it either encourages or stops social change. But I've said that term now quite a few times already in this 30-second video. Social change. What exactly is social change? There is a definition there. This is just one I've just quickly typed out. It's not one I've actually found, but it's social change is change over time that occurs in our society in the way we function, and this change is usually tangible. So it's usually observable. You can usually see something. So a social change that's happened in my lifetime is the ubiquity of mobile phones. This is a remote controller because I don't have my phone on me. But like the ubiquity, the everywhereness of mobile phones, that's something that's happened in my life. That is tangible. That's observable. I can see that. Over a longer life span is the increasing acceptance of homosexuality, for example. So what we're looking at is how the minority, majority, and obedience processes affect social change. So here's what I say to students quite a lot, and I will say this in my classes. I don't know what I say to my students because I've just gone blank. Oh, that's it. In the next 20 years, as you grow older and move towards your 40s, society is going to change in ways that you both don't like and don't see coming. So I tend to try, and students like to think of themselves as the most tolerant people in the world. We're not racist, we're not ageist, we're not sexist, we're not misogynist. We accept everybody, and chances are that you kind of do. However, society is going to change, and it's going to change in ways that you didn't grow up with, and you are not going to like some of that. And so this tolerance that you have quickly evaporates as society keeps changing. So one thing I like to say and what students fail to recognize is they back up my point all the time. So I want to bring in this idea about, and I will talk about this in class quite a lot, related to this, the concept of a three-way relationship. So I think, and I've done a lot of reading on this, not because I want it to happen, but it does seem to me that three-way relationships within the next 5 to 15 years are going to really become an established norm. We're going to see a lot more people holding two hands walking down the road in a throuple, and that term is going to be a normal thing soon. And it's going to become slowly more normal. Okay. Now, a lot of people don't agree with this, and a lot of students don't agree with this because it's not how they grew up. So I'm going to use that example as we go through, right? Just to give you some contextualized examples. So as I said, we're going to look at conformity, obedience, minority influence, and how they encourage or inhibit / stop social change. This is pretty much your answers. Now, on the side, as you can see, I clearly have got some. Let me just do that. I've clearly got some voice notes here, so I would recommend that you use those notes. But I also want to go through, and I'm going to start from the beginning. My advice would be to write as much of what I'm about to say down. I'm going to try to slow it down to make it make more sense. And I'm also going to give it in context of a three-way relationship. So let's start with normative social influence. That actually stops social change. And let me explain why. I want to imagine that you enter a three-way relationship now with, I don't know, Bob and Jessica. You go into class one day and you sit down next to your peer mate and you say, Jeremiah, you're never going to guess. Well, where am I getting these names? Jeremiah. So I'm in a throuple. Yep, I'm in a three-way relationship with Bob and Jess. We're on a first name short basis now. It's brilliant. And Bob turns around. Remember, Bob is the majority here. Bob is the norm, right? And Bob's going to turn around and be like, mate, that's really weird. That's really weird. Why are you doing that? Like, that's not normal. And the more people you speak to, you're going to realize. Now, remember what normative social influence is. Normative social influence is we don't want to be disapproved of by the group. Now, if you sit down next to Bob, Bob is your partner. If you sit down next to Jeremiah, your classmate, and more people start chiming in your class, I'm sorry, what? You're in a three? That's so weird. Why are you in a three relationship? Who are you going to trust? You're going to love someone more, and they basically disapprove of. You might go, yeah, you know what? I was wrong. I don't want to be disapproved of by the group. I'm going to stop that social change. I'm going to stop that new behavior that we're doing. So you need to understand that normative social influence stops social change because we don't want to be disapproved of by the established majority. It's a really, really good thing to write down if I don't say so myself. But what happens? Let's just say what happens if you actually truly believe in thruppleism, three-way. That's a term I just made up. What happens if you really believe in it and you stick to your guns? It's a little bit like normative social influence. But remember, ISI, if you are right, if you believe you are right, and in this case, you may believe, no, three-way relationships is the future, for example, right? Monogamy is dead, polygamy is alive, so on and so forth. Right? I don't know what catchy slogans you're going to come up with. But through minority influence processes, that may actually create social change. Now, let me go through minority in a bit more detail. There is a bit more to ISI, which I won't go into now, but I want to go through minority influence and about how minority influence processes actually do encourage social change. So, for example, consistency. You sit down next to Jeremiah and you consistently tell him about the benefits of a three-way relationship. He at first thinks you're really weird, but remember from last lesson, that consistency, that unwavering show of belief is going to plant doubt in the majority's head. If you remain consistent and, for example, how would you remain consistent in a three-way relationship? You would constantly, almost boast about the benefits of a three-way relationship. It's not as if one day you would come in and be like, oh, it's amazing, like having two people there to speak to, and I don't know, like the intimacy, for example, so much better, the connection so much better, and then the next day you come in and be like, oh God, I hate them. That's not consistent. That is not giving consistent beliefs. The other thing is obviously commitment as well. So how could you show commitment to a three-way relationship? Announce it to everyone in the class? That's self-sacrificial, isn't it? You may get mocked by the whole class. But if you get mocked by the whole class and everyone starts rumors and stuff, etc., that is you kind of showing the augmentation principle in the sense of you are self-sacrificing yourself to raise awareness that three-way relationships are a thing. You've just been mocked by the entire class that you're in a throuple, right? You've just been questioned relentlessly, persecuted relentlessly because you're in a three-way relationship. But yet you're still in a three-way relationship at the end of it. And again, remember that commitment makes the majority doubt their own position. And then finally, flexibility. If you stand on tables and start ranting and raving about how everyone needs to be in a three-way relationship, everybody, or you're wrong or something like that, the majority aren't going to take you seriously because you're telling them that they're wrong. You're not giving them an option. You're not compromising. If you were to stand on the tables and say, look, lads and lasses, I'm in a three-way relationship and that's what I want for me. But, we accept that some people may want to be in a two-way relationship and you show that flexibility, and you're saying all we want is acceptance. We will accept you in a two-way relationship if you accept us in a three-way relationship. There's that flexibility instead of trying to make everybody in a three-way relationship. That is going to resonate with the majority a lot more than telling them everyone has to be in a three-way relationship. So here's the tricky bit, because minority influence links to obedience. I'm going to use veganism as an example here, because what I'm about to say hasn't happened with three-way relationships yet, but it has happened with veganism. Vegans did the whole majority influence thing, right? Vegans did that successfully, right? They were flexible, they were consistent, they were committed. And basically, the established group gets bigger, more accepted. At some point, vegans are going to represent a sizable part of the population. And it's then that they're going to turn to government and say, you are supposed to represent us. We want protection. We want laws. We want to be represented in government. And here's the key word. They will lobby the government. Probably don't want to choose orange when you're drawing on orange, but they will lobby the government basically, right? And they will put pressure on the government to introduce laws to protect them and, give them laws and protection, etc., etc. Now, vegans, it is now illegal to discriminate against vegans. It's now illegal. On the same level of homosexuality, race, they are now a protected, not species. They're now protected people because they got sizable enough, they got big enough, and then the minority then lobbied the government. Now, where does obedience come in? And shouldn't struggle with this, I think. There's something you need to understand here. People generally obey the law. People generally obey the law. Of course, a lot of people break the law every single day, and we're all criminals, etc., in some way or another. But generally speaking, people obey the law. So if the laws change through the lobbying of government, society will change with it. If vegans get the law changed and they stop getting discriminated against, people will stop discriminating against vegans. I used to mock the crap out of vegans 5 years ago. At the time of filming, I used to mock vegans relentlessly 5 years ago. Right? We used to joke about it. They used to laugh, but they would always stick to their guns. Now I don't do it anymore because I've kind of accepted that they are just a normal part of society. Right? Fruities, I do mock. Right? People that only eat fruit that have fallen naturally off the tree, I do mock. But in 5 years' time, am I going to be sat here and looking at there's like 5 fruities in my class, all withered because they don't actually eat that much, or they can't eat that much because there's not that much fruit that naturally falls off the tree. But I can't mock them because they only eat moldy apples, because they are protected species. Not species. Why do I keep saying that? They're a protected people. So society is going to change, and you're not going to like it. Sex with robots is another one, right? That's a minority at the minute in mainly parts of Asia, but there are a few people marrying robots, for example, marrying robots. Now, at the moment, that's a very small minority of people, and we think they are weird. Right? At the moment, as a society, let's be honest, let's put that out there, we think they are weird. But what happens if they stick to their guns and say, well, the robot's never going to leave you? And then a few of you are like, yeah, that's a good point, actually. That's a good point. Yeah, I could love something and it always love me back. That's better than loving someone and always having the risk of them leaving or cheating on you, for example. And then that will slowly convince more people, will get more established. And after a while, in 15 years' time, we're going to be legalizing robot marriage. And people nowadays, your age, will be like, that's weird. When I was at college, we didn't date robots. It's just weird, right? So you do need to understand this. I may not have described that best. I probably could have done that a little bit better, I feel. But That is the very basics of what you have to know for this piece of research. There's a lot more here. I don't know if there's anything here. So we've got obedience. We got. Let me just do this again. Try to choose a different one this time. We've got changes to the laws which can make a certain behaviour more of a social norm. So let's. The example I often use. I can see the motorway just over there from my room. The speed of the motorway is 70 miles an hour. Let's say there's a small, which there are, by the way, a small group of motorists who are lobbying the government to raise the speed limit to 80 miles an hour. Everyone obeys the law. Everyone obeys the law. And on that motorway right now, I can guarantee the average is 70 miles an hour. People drive, of course, people drive 80, of course, people drive 90. It's usually BMW drivers who don't know what an indicator is. But generally speaking, most people obey the law. If we raise the speed limit to 80 miles an hour, do you really think everybody's going to keep driving 70? Do you really think everyone's going to keep driving 70? If we, and there's a few other examples which I won't go into. So, fine. That is pretty much, I think, what I wanted to go. What have I done? I need to use a razor now to get rid of this. Come on, lads. Okay, fine. Oh, hello. Oh, that's quite nice. And here's the example I've got. Right, consider the following. The government reduced this motorway speed limit to 60 miles an hour in an effort to reduce high pollution levels, which they have mooted before. New signs are put up and speed cameras are adjusted to measure cars going 60 miles an hour. What would happen with drivers reduce their speed? Absolutely they would. Absolutely they would. If we reduced the speed limit down to 50 to 40 on the motorway, people generally would do it. People would do it. Okay, right. Fine. Burgoon is a good piece of research here. It said that it is the deviant and unexpected behaviours of the minorities that alert and arouse us, not in the way you may think, and lead to deeper level analysis of our own behaviour. So what Burgoon is saying there is these minorities that are, for example, committed to their goal through the augmentation principle do make us actually think about it. This indicates it is the violation of social norms which leads to social change through the ISI. We've also got Nemeth, who we have actually looked at before. You do need to know Nemeth as well. So that's pretty much it, to be honest with you. It's a weird bullet point, admittedly. There's nothing really new. This is more just an AO2 bullet point. But that question there, explain the role of social change processes in social change, you would need to explain how ISI encourages the social change. Using an example, so you can go, gay rights, for example, or trans rights. Trans rights are something that we're as a society, we're grappling with the changing dynamic, and it's a very, very, very fast. It's a very fast acceptance, much faster than previous minorities. But you would need to be able to explain everything I've talked about today in a context of trans rights, civil rights, women's rights, so on and so forth. That is it, really. There is a mark scheme just here if you wanted to pause the video and have a look through that question. But that is it for social influence. As always, hope it was useful. And we will be moving on to memory and the models of memory next.